Hello and welcome to another episode. I am Brian, the Unskilled Commander, and this is going to be another one of my deck building breakdowns. I'm not even sure what to call it. Basically, we are going to get Rograkh, son of Roghan, however you want to say it, down to 100 cards. It's currently at 186. We need to cut a bunch of cards, but I want to build it differently. Excuse me. The goal is to build him a little bit different. Obviously, he is a 0-drop. He's First Strike, Menace, and Trample, 0-1, and he's got Partner. I'm not partnering him with anything. And the idea is, I still firmly believe that you can make a deck built off of instants and sorceries that temporarily buff your creature and go for commander damage. I tried to build this deck actually with Kenneth the White Horse as a partner. I just didn't get it going right. And I don't want to do art equipments. You know, it's not going to be a bunch of swords and all that stuff like every other equipment deck out there. I think that because of the trample and the menace and the first strike, honestly, all three of his keywords, if you slam down a bunch of instants after declaring attack, you can buff him up to 5/5 or like whatever, 5/6, 7/8, something like that, and get through for commander damage. Now, of course, mono red, that's great, but you're going to lose your hand real fast. You're going to use all your cards, and then that's it. You know, mono red card draw is not that great because you have to discard to do it half the time, or it's exile, and then some of the newer cards are better because it's exile and you can play it until the end of your next turn. That's not so bad. But when it's just like play to the end of the turn, what if you exile a 5-drop spell and you only have 2 extra mana? So you just exile a card that you could have used. So I'm not crazy about that. So I started thinking like, well, then we need some recursion, which of course red is not great in recursion because it's not black. But there are cards that can help play instants and sorceries from your graveyard. So if we can build him just right, if we can get it so that, you know, we can play the instants and sorceries back out of your graveyard and get multiple uses out of them, I think it's not going to be like a powerhouse deck by any stretch, but I think it should be able to hold its own in a casual game. You know, high casual, probably not, but just an honest-to-God casual commander deck, or commander game rather, I think he's got the potential to just be fun and silly. So I want to try and build him. So we're just going to start going through the cards. Like I said, we got to cut 86 to get this down to a legal 100. So we've got 3 planeswalkers chosen so far. And if you guys have any suggestions of cards to add or whatever, let me know. And if you think, oh, Brian, you need to cut that card, it's not going to help, let me know. That's the whole point of doing it on stream. I love having chat help me and give me their insight and their opinions on what are good cards and what are bad cards. Starting with Jessica Thrice Reborn, she enters with a loyalty counter equal to the number of times you've cast your commander. So I have to wait until I can cast him once. But he's a 0-drop. I can literally cast him before I take any other actions on turn 1. So she'll come in with at least 1 loyalty counter. You pay 0, choose target creature until your next turn. That creature would deal combat damage to one of your opponents. It deals triple that damage instead. I think that's really good for this deck because we need to get him dealing lots of damage real fast, and then if it goes away, that's fine, but it needs to be double and triple. So we're probably going to need some of those, double and triple enchantments and stuff in here. Some are already there. I might actually need to add a few, but I think for a 3-drop planeswalker, and it's only 0, at least, like, she won't go up anymore, but you don't really need her to. You just need her to stay on the battlefield. But with only 1 loyalty, she'll get destroyed easy, blah, blah. I still think it's a decent keep. Koth, 5 of resistance. Search your library for basic mountain, reveal it, put in your hand, and then -3 deals damage to target creature equal to the number of mountains, and you get an emblem whenever a mountain enters the battlefield under your control. It deals 4 damage to any target. This one is like probably going to get cut, I think, just because it's great to deck thin and get mountains, get you land, because you do need lots of land to play a bunch of spells all at once. If you're just playing 1 buff spell that gives Rograkh +2/+3 until end of turn, it's not going to help you. So you need a lot of mana to play a few of them at once. But I don't really know that he's going to make the cut because I also don't want this mono red deck to just be a burn deck, because I have a burn deck. I have Immodane. So again, I like to try and make decks that aren't necessarily counterintuitive to their colors, but that push the boundaries of their colors a little bit and experiment and see if there's ways to do something unique. We got Zariel, Archduke of Avernus. +1 is creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain haste until end of turn. So you make a devil that when it dies, it deals a damage. So again, at best, I can give, the commander +1/+0 until end of turn. And haste, which is helpful, depending on if I had to recast him or something. But it's not a massive buff, but it's repeatable, and I'm not spending more mana to repeat it. So that is one of the reasons why I tossed it in there as a potential. And the 0-drop I can use to just kind of make a little bit of a blocker army if I need to. So right now, I definitely think I want to keep Jessica for sure. These two are kind of iffy. We'll come back to them later on, but those will probably end up getting cut. Personally, I like to go bottom up whenever I'm cutting cards because it's just a little easier for me to kind of take care of things, because creatures are always like the last thing I want to cut because creatures always have like the best abilities and they're important and stuff. So lands, nothing special here. We got 36 lands. That's my always base. You always want to have like 36 lands in a commander deck. I know there's plenty of discourse about like, oh, but you can go down to like 30 or 25 or something if you have the mana rocks and blah, blah, blah. Like, yes, you're optimizing your deck and really tweaking it, that number can drop. But for a casual deck, you should have 36, 37. Hey, what's up, Godzilla? Thanks for showing up. How you doing? Appreciate you stopping by. I am trying to make Rograkh. I never say his name right. I call him Rograkh. I don't care. Trying to make him viable with instants and sorceries. Yeah, so it's going to be instant and sorceries buffs, no equipment or anything like that, and I don't want it to be like a burn deck. So there's a couple spells in here that are like target, creature or player can take some damage, but I don't want to. They might end up getting cut or whatever. So it's just I'm trying to build something a little weird but fun, because I said this earlier, I believe that you can viably make a commander damage deck with instant and sorcery till end of turn effects. There are going to be a lot of enchantments in here that will just enchant Rograkh to make him like, oh, enchanted creature gets +1/+2 or whatever. But I really like the idea of just going to combat. Okay, you've got a 0/1 coming at me, whatever. Okay, in response, I play like 4 instant spells, and now it's an 8/8 or something like that, But I have 186 cards, so I love coming onto Twitch and having chat help me cut cards and make suggestions of cards that I don't have in here, because this is built off of my bulk. I just went through my red stack and be like, okay, this seems maybe, and then we cut. But I was saying I like to go from the bottom up, so the lands are pretty much set 36. So we've got 23 enchantments. I think that's a bit much. Starting off, we got Aki Warpaint. So you enchant the creature, and it gets +2/+1. And that's pretty. That would make him a 2/2. And like I want to keep. I think I'm going to keep the auras just because it's a little obvious, and he needs something that's a little static versus only the instant and sorcery buffs. Arcane Bombardment. Whenever you cast your first instant or sorcery spell each turn, exile an instant sorcery card at random from your graveyard, then copy each card exiled with Arcane Bombardment. I think while it's a 6-drop, I think it should stay, because if I'm casting a bunch of them, after a couple turns, as long as no one blows up that enchantment, I can be casting all of those again in one turn, constantly getting bigger. So it'll help Rograkh get stronger and stronger each turn. Burning Anger. Tap it. This creature deals damage equal to its power to any target. Again, it's a high cost. It's 5 mana. I like it because it's nice if I can't get through if Rograkh's like only a 4/3 or something, or a 4/4, 4/5. Can't swing in on him and on anybody, but I can still tap him and deal 4 damage to somebody. And that might be the difference. But I don't know. It's like with it being 5 mana, I've found that you really want to keep your mana curve as low as possible. Is 2 and 3 drop spells is where you're going to be able to go faster than everybody else and actually get through. So while I like the idea of pinging, I think I'm going to get rid of this one or remove that. City on Fire. I said this earlier because of whatever else was up there. We need to have our damage doublers and damage triplers in here, because it's the only way he's going to be viable as a commander damage commander. And plus, I love City on Fire, although that does counteract what I just said because it's an 8-drop. So huge amount of mana for this card, but it triples your damage. And you can convoke it, so if I do a couple creatures out, I can tap them, make it a little easier to get out. Dragon Mantle. When it enters, you get to draw a card, so right off the bat, that helps. And then you pay red, and the creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn. So, and it's only a 1-drop, so I can play it on turn 2 and swing with Rograkh and tap a red just to give him +1, so he's hitting for 1. And if it's late game, if I have a bunch of mana, now you have to have red mana, right? Hey, what's up, Daniel? How you doing? Appreciate you stopping by. That's really cool. I'm a beautiful beast. Thank you so much. Sometimes I just feel like the beast part, but I appreciate that. Like I was saying with Dragon Mantle, it has to be red mana, so even if I have like a Soul Ring, that's not going to feed into it, so it can't be super big unless it's super late game and you're just lucky and you recast the commander. But I think this one, because you can ramp it up, so to speak, you can increase it, that should be a given. Elemental Mastery. Tap it and make X red creature tokens with haste, where X is the creature's power. Exile him at the beginning of the end step. Because he's not going to have a solid power and toughness that's really big, we probably don't need this one. I think that's an easy remove. Taldi's Favor. Whenever it enters, you can discover 3, and then the creature gets +1/+1 and has trample. The 3-drop, it's only giving you a static +1/+1, so that means Rograkh would be a 1/2. But it's better than nothing, and at least it sticks around for a while. So for right now, I think we can leave that one. Festival of Embers. During your turn, you may cast instant and sorcery spells from your graveyard by paying a life. So that's going to help us get those spells back multiple times. If a card or token we put into your graveyard from anywhere, exile instead. So that's the bad part, is that, once you cast it again, it goes away. And then it's a little tricky because you need to sit on this spell and wait until you have a bunch of spells in the graveyard already. Cast it and cast them from your graveyard, and then pay the 2 to sacrifice it. And it's a 5-drop enchantment. So again, this one might come out. It helps to get the stuff out of the graveyard, but once it's on the field, you have to sacrifice it. Or otherwise, anything you play will exile and you won't get a chance to use it again. Grim Reaper Spirit. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2 and has haste. When it enters the battlefield, untap each creature you control and you get an additional combat phase after this one. So that's helpful because Rograkh could swing twice and it's +2/+2, but it is a 5-drop. And it costs 3 less to cast if a creature died this turn, so I think we can get rid of that one because it seems like it's relatively situational. Like you really have to kind of work it right to get it to go big in a certain deck, and that's just not this deck. Hammerhand. Whenever Hammerhand enters the battlefield, target creature can't block this turn, and the creature gets +1/+1 haste, just like the other one. So, but it's a 1-drop, and I think that's helpful. And plus, when it comes in, ideally, if he's got Menace, Rograkh. So as long as you can say that creature doesn't block, now you're getting through. Leyline of Resonance. Whenever you cast instant sorcery spell that targets only a single creature you control, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. This is really good because now you're getting double usage out of every instant sorcery you're targeting Rograkh with. So I think that's definitely a keep. Excuse me. Okay, Maniacal Rage. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2 and can't block, but it's only a 2-drop, and I do want to have some extra creatures. This isn't going to be like a commander damage deck where you only got 5 creatures or something because it's all about the commander. So I think the fact that you might make Rograkh not be able to block isn't such a big deal. Could come back to bite you, but I'm going to leave it for now. Mishra's Domination. As long as you control enchanted creature, it's +2/+2. Otherwise, it can't block. So it's basically the same thing as a better Maniacal Rage, really. Passionate Archaeologist. Whenever you cast a spell from exile, this creature deals damage. I don't think we're really going to be playing too much from exile. We'll get rid of that. Return from the Past. It's a 6-drop, but I think this one's got to stay because it gives flashback to all of your instant and sorceries, and we need that. Rite of the Raging Storm. I like it because, it gives a goaded creature basically to, everybody on their turn, but I don't think we need it. This isn't a goad deck. Of course, I haven't been coughing all day, and now that I go to talk, I gotta cough. Sticky Fingers. Enchanted creature has Menace, which he already does. Whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, create a treasure token, and when enchanted creature dies, draw a card. That could be beneficial. Obviously, but, people are going to be blowing up Rograkh anyway, so you'll get a card draw out of it, and the treasures can help you recast or cast more spells per turn. So I think we leave that for right now. Stolen Strategy. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile top card of your library, or of each opponent's library. Until end of turn, you may cast them, and you may spend mana as though it were any color. Cool, but I think we can get rid of that. 5-drop. Right, Tavern Brawler. Commander creatures have, at the beginning of your upkeep, exile top card. It gets +X/+0, where X is the mana value, and you may play it this turn. See, again, this is one of those things where it's this turn. If I top deck Arcane Bombardment, and I only have 3 open mana, now I just lose Arcane Bombardment, and yes, Rograkh will get +6/+0, which is great, but I lost a card that could help me get stuff out of the graveyard, so I think we get rid of this one. Underworld Breach. Each non-land card in your graveyard has escape. The escape cost is equal to the mana value, plus exile 3 other cards from your graveyard. At the beginning of each of the end step... At the beginning of the end step, sacrifice Underworld Breach. Well, no. That was already, like, a lot of stuff, so yeah, no. Unquenchable Fury. It's the quenchiest. Whenever this creature attacks, it deals X damage to defending player, where X is the number of cards in their hand, and when it's put in the graveyard from the battlefield, return it to your hand. This is getting ridiculous. So it's good because at least, you know, the person defending will take a little bit of damage as long as they have cards in their hand. And if that equipment gets, you know, blown up or whatever, you just put it back in your hand. But it's not a definite, it's a maybe at this point. Cool, but we probably have to get rid of it. Vow of Lightning. Creature gets +2/+2 and has first strike and can't attack you or Planeswalker. So again, he already has first strike, but the +2/+2 is decent. And then War Squeak, target creature an opponent controls can't block, and then this creature gets +1/+1 and has haste. So we're still down to or still have 15 enchantments. And that's a lot of enchantments for a non-enchantment deck, really. But at the same time, we do want to have these spells that give a buff to Rograkh permanently, like that they just stay. Give him some sort of baseline, either, you know, +2/+2 or +1/+1 and a couple of them. That way Rograkh is like natively sort of like a 4/4, and then I can dump a bunch of spells. It's just easier to get him higher. So we probably want those, but I believe we are missing some doublers though. So Fiery Emancipation, right? Yep. There we go. We want that because that triples damage. So maybe. So where are the things that give +2/+2? That's a double. That's 2. See, these ones +2/+2, but they only cost 2, whereas this one is 3. So let's get rid of that to at least compensate for Fiery Emancipation. Haven't gone down too much, but we'll leave it there. And then we go to artifacts. There's 15 of them. Now, in a mono red deck, you really don't need a lot of mana rocks per se, but again, in mono red, you're not going to get a lot of ramps, so you need, you know, ways to get mana out there that you can play multiple spells per turn. So Arcane Signet, Bonder's Ornament, Commander's Sphere. Cursed Mirror is good because you can have it come in as a copy of someone else's creature if they have got something big out. Decanter of Endless Water, so you have no maximum hand size. Endless Atlas, that lets you draw. And you're going to have a fair amount of basic mountains in this, so ideally you can do it. Isochron Scepter, probably a really good one because, you know, you get to reuse an instant over and over again, but it's still only once per turn. You know, I'm not building this around Isochron Scepter where you can untap it and repay and blah, blah. So I know it's a good card, but I don't know that... I think we just get rid of it. Just because, like, I'm not building the deck around it, and I'm not super skilled in, you know, all of that, so... Mind Stone, Ruby Medallion is like a given because we're going to be playing nothing but red spells and these couple artifacts. This one, when it enters the battlefield, you discard a card, but if you do, you draw 2 cards, and then you can craft with it to make a little dude whose power is equal to the number of exiled cards used to craft it. So not really that big of a deal. It's more about the card draw, really. 2 mana and discard a card to draw 2 cards, but you can eventually get like a little blocker out of it. Soul Ring. Staff of the Flame Magus, I really like it, but once again, we're not making a life gain deck, so one little thing of life gain could help, but probably not a make or break. So we'll get rid of that. Grand Dynamo, I want to keep. Urbrask's Forge is really cool because it makes a tramply dude that, you know, keeps getting bigger and bigger every time. We took out the card that gave us that enchantment that gave the lightning. Whatever, it's the 5 ones. But this thing can just keep getting bigger, and it's got trample and haste. So I kind of want to leave that one. Plus, I just like the card. And then Volshock Factory, an artifact that just makes a red, but you put a charge counter on it when you tap it, and pay 3 and sacrifice it to make an XX Golem that has haste, where it's how many charge counters are on it. I think we can probably get rid of that one. And let's see. Now, here's one of the reasons why I do like having Bonder's Ornament, Commander's Sphere, Mind Stone, because they're emergency card draw. You know, Mind Stone, pay 1 and sack it to draw a card. Commander's Sphere, just sack it immediately to draw a card. Bonder's Ornament, pay 4, tap it, draw a card. And that's repeatable. So that's one of the reasons why I like to keep them in pretty much every deck, regardless of whether or not it's monocolored. Arcane Signet, however, while it's a 2-drop and helps, I kind of have been cutting that a little bit early in some of the decks recently. Monocolored, rather. So I think we'll go ahead and cut it from this one. Why not? And this one, I don't know, there's a lot of, we'll leave it because the whole point is we're trying to get cards that allow us to get recursion in this mono red deck. So we'll give it a chance. But still, 11 artifacts, that's a lot. And then when we're coming up now on our instance, there's 32. This ought to be fun. This ought to be good for a laugh. So we need to have, in the instance and sorceries, we need to have some answers as well. Unfortunately, when I was going through them, they only deal with artifacts. I didn't see anything that said destroy or exile enchantment in red, so that's going to be a little problematic. But a Braid can deal 3 damage to target creature or destroy an artifact, so it's multi-use. That's really important whenever you're looking at resources and answers. So leave that one. Ancestors Raid. Now here's where we're getting to the point where it's like, oh, these are the kind of cards that are going to buff Rograkh. So +2/+0 and first strike, which it already has, but you also get to make a treasure. So that one we keep. Antagonize, this is really good. Target creature gets +4/+3. That's huge, so that one's staying. Big score, we got card draw, so discard a card, make 2 treasures, and draw 2 cards. That's pretty good. Blazing Crescendo, +3/+1, and you get exile the top card of your library, and until the end of your next turn, you can play it. So that gives you a little bit of time in case you drop exile a high-cost spell. So that one I want to keep. Bulk Up, double target creature's power until end of turn and with flashback. This one actually, it's only 2-drop and it could come in handy in a pinch, but if he doesn't have any, he's got a 0/1. So like if he's got nothing on him, Bulk Up's not going to do anything. So we go ahead and get rid of that. Cast into the Fire. Deals 1 damage to 2 creatures, but you can exile a target artifact. We'll see what other ones we have because that's kind of like 1 damage to 2 creatures. Meh, unless they're just little 1/1 tokens. Who cares? Critical hit. Target creature gains double strike until end of turn, and when you roll 20, blah blah. This one I think we can get rid of because again, if he doesn't have any power, doubling it's not going to matter. Delayed Blast Fireball. I really put this in here just because I like the extra life secret lair version of it. But if you, cast it for its foretell thing, it can deal 5 damage to each opponent and each creature they control. Or you can pay 3 and it deals 2 damage to each opponent and each creature they control. I kind of want to leave it for right now. It might get cut, but I think we leave it for right now. Man Answers, draw 2 cards, sacrifice 1, other way around, but that's a card draw, we need it. Dreadmaw's Ire. Till end of turn, target attacking creature gets +2/+2, has trample, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, destroy target artifact that player controls. That one's a 1-drop. I think we keep that. Flare of Duplication. Copy target instant or sorcery spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. You can sacrifice a non-token red creature rather than pay the spell. Mana cost. I'm not sure we're going to have enough creatures to do that, but copying a spell could be a big deal. Like if we copied Antagonize, now suddenly Rograkh is a 8/9 or 8/7. So I think that one for right now we keep. Fling, last ditch effort. Oh no, I pump him up till end of turn. He's a 8/7 like we just said. I fling him. Maybe, but I say we get rid of it because we also took out those cards that were saying, similar things. So if we're not going to do an entire theme, then we might as well just get out the little onesies because they're not going to help. Free from Flesh. Target creature gets +2/+2, and then he puts some oil counters on it, which those won't come back in, but it's a 1-drop that gets a +2/+2. I think that's a keeper. Gimli's Fury, 2-drop, 3/3/+2. If his legendary, it also gains trample. Now, of course, these are great cards, but the funny thing is, like, all the stuff they're giving, first strike and trample, Rograkh already has natively, so that's kind of wasted, but we're more concerned with the actual power anyway. So this one I want to keep. Goblin Surprise. Make some goblins or give it +2/+0. I kind of had this in here because, well, maybe if I need blockers and stuff, but I think we can get rid of this because we need to cut cards. I mean, that's the whole point. I can't just keep all of them. A 1-drop that's +3/+2, that's great. We got to keep that one for sure. Invoke Calamity. You may cast up to 2 instant and or sorcery spells with total mana value 6 or less from your graveyard or hand without paying their mana costs. If they're going to the graveyard, you exile them and exile Invoke Calamity. This one we have to keep because we need that recursion. Lightning Bolt, I wanted to use the Storm art, but yeah, we're totally going to have to get rid of it because this isn't a direct damage mana burn deck. Monstrous. Target creature gets +2/+0, and then create a monster roll token attached to it. If you control another roll, okay, whatever. But enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and has trample. So basically, you cast this, the creature gets +2/+0, and then also gets a +1/+1 counter on it. So I think we got to keep that for one. Outlaw Fury. Creatures you control get +2/+0 until end of turn. If you have an outlaw, do some stuff, which I don't know how many outlaws we're going to have in this deck, if any. The 3-drop, not horrible, and it gives all creatures you control. So we're going to have other creatures, so that could help in a pinch if we want to swing out. So leave it for right now. Rabid Gnaw. Target creature gets +1/+0. Then it deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. I say we get rid of that because it's only +1/+0. Reverberate, copy target spell, instant sorcery. You may choose new targets. That's helpful. Thaz's Cap's Brew, discard a card, and then target player draws 2 cards. If the gift was given, target creature I control gets +2/+0. So you can give somebody a 1/1 fish to block with, give it to somebody else and attack this different person. So that one we'll leave for right now. Siege Smash, destroy target artifact. Target creature gets +3/+2. That one's got to stay. Because not only is it 3/2 is a good buff, but it's also got the versatility of, well, I'd rather use that, but we need to get rid of this targeted artifact somebody else has that's really screwing us over. Soul's Fire, target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to any target. Again, that's going to be like the last spell we cast, so not important. Stolen Vitality, +3/+1. If it's your turn, the creature gains trample, otherwise it's first strike. That one's good. Battle Rage, target creature gains double strike, also gains trample. So double strike would be good, but like we said earlier, if it doesn't have anything on it, not really going to help matters. So as important as that is, I think we'd rather focus on the damage doublers and the damage triplers than worry about that little one-time double strike. Chase is on, +3/+0, and gains first strike until end of turn, and you get to investigate. So that at least gets you some, card draw, or I think makes a clue. Thrill of Possibilities, there's your card draw. Twinferno. When you cast your next instant of sorcery, copy it, and then, or rather, you can target creature gains double strike until end of turn. That one I think we definitely keep because of the versatility. We're mainly having it so that we can copy a spell that's a buff. But if we already are able to cast some stuff and he's big, it's better to double it than just add another 3 or something. And then here we go, another double the power of target creature until end of turn. We've already been taking out those, so let's get rid of that one. All right, down to 23. Not great, but we'll see what we got in our sorceries, there's 40 of them. So I've got Active Treason. I've got a couple of these in here where you gain control of target opponent's creature and untap it, gives it haste, blah. Because there will be creatures in this deck, and hopefully a decent amount, but do I want to, lean into that, take your creature, smack you with it? But I think based off of what we're seeing, we should just get rid of those. Focus on just making Rograkh, banner damage. So we've got Negate Assault, deals 4 damage to target creature. If it dies, you exile it, or exile target artifact. So can help. Blow your house down. Up to 3 target creatures can't block this turn. Destroy any of them that are walls. I have a few spells like this in here because the idea was even with Menace, once you get to turn 4, everybody's got 2 creatures out. So he's not going to get through except for the trample. And if they're blocking and stuff like that, we need, if we're going for commander damage off of this build, the most stuff needs to get through. But I think we can just take it out. Because again, if you're not, from what I've learned over these years of having the channel, is that you have to pick just 1, 2, or maybe 3 themes for a deck and focus on them. If you try and have I'm going to cover all my bases and have a card that deals with every single possibility, you're never going to get those cards when you need them, and you're just going to dilute your deck. So, and see right here, well, this one, 3 damage to each opponent for 1. It's skewing off a little bit, but I also have Fiery Confluence, which is right here. So pay 4 mana, I just choose, the second mode there 3 times. You're dealing 6 damage to each opponent. I kind of want to keep those for right now. They might get cut at the end, though. Change of Fortune, discard your hand, then draw a card for each card you've discarded. That could be a great bit of card draw. Although, you're paying 4 mana and you're using that card. So whatever you have left in your hand, well, you're probably going to have 2, 3, 4, maybe if you're lucky. It's not like you're replenishing your entire hand up to 7. You're just replacing whatever you discard. I think we get rid of that. And here again, up to 3 target creatures can't block this turn. Let's go ahead and get rid of that one. Demolish, destroy target artifact or land. And this comes down to, well, how many destroy target artifacts are we going to have here? Because it's all we're getting in the red, so it's like we don't need 1,000 of them. So let's go ahead and get rid of this just because. Goad all creatures you don't control. This is one of those one-offs that I'm just told you not to do, but I think it's kind of a nice, not a bomb per se, but it's a last-ditch effort. It's a Hail Mary. It's like, okay, everybody's got a bunch of creatures. You know what? Duke it out for yourselves, and I'm just going to sit back and wait. Environmental Sciences, get a basic land and gain 2 life, but we're going to go get rid of that. All right, Confluence, like I said, I want to keep that for now. Finale of Promise. You may cast up to 1 target instant card and or sorcery card from your graveyard, each with mana value X or less without paying its mana cost. If a spell cast this way, we put in the graveyard exile. If X is 10 or more, copy each of those spells twice. You may choose new targets for the copies. So you can copy a spell real quick, low, early on in game, but if you can sit on it long enough and let it go through without being countered, you can actually do quite a bit. So I think we leave that. Here's another gain control, so we can get rid of that for sure. Grab the prize, it's card draw, and it can even damage your opponents because most likely you're not going to get rid of a land. Involuntary Employment, gain control, so we can get rid of that. Isengard Unleashed, here's your damage tripler, and damage can't be prevented, so that one we want to do. Last chance, take an extra turn, and at the beginning of that turn's end step, you lose the game, but we can just get rid of that. That was in there for like, oh, that'd be funny, but yeah. Another gain control, so we can get rid of that. Mizzet's Mastery. I don't know that printing, but yes, this is a great card. I have this in my Imodane. Any kind of, red in a deck, red blues, red whatever, you're doing instant sorceries, Mizzet Mastery is a great card because you overload it. Costs 8 to overload, but everything in your graveyard, instant sorcery, gets recast. Monastery Raid. Exile top 2 cards of your library. If its free running spell cost was paid, exile top X cards instead. You may play them until the end of your next turn. Past in Flames, instant sorceries get flashback in your graveyard. Now the thing is, you got to pay 4 to do this, and then have enough mana to cast things for their flashback cost, which is just their mana cost in your graveyard. But we need that recursion. Portent of Betrayal. Okay, we can get rid of that. So at least that's helping get rid of some quick cards. Gain control. Here we go. Prisoner's Dilemma. This one is just like, it's confusing, but it's fun. And it's pretty much guaranteed to hit everybody, all your opponents for 4 damage, if not 8. So I say we leave that because we got Confluence and Bolt Wave. We are doing some all opponents taking damage stuff. Heretic Charge. Discard your hand, draw 4 cards. For each card discarded, creatures get +1/+0. So, but it is a 5-drop. Or you can plot it for 4, I suppose. So the point is, discard your hand, even if you're only discarding like 2 cards. Now Rograkh gets +2/+2, or +2/+0 rather. You're buffing your creatures, drawing new cards. I think that one we keep. Recoup, target sorcery card in your graveyard, gains flashback. This is a little worse than it's a lot worse than Past in Flames because it's just 1 target card gets flashback in your graveyard. But if it's a powerful card, that could be the deal breaker. So we leave that. Renegade Tactics, target creature can't block this turn and you draw a card. It's only a 1-drop, but I think we can go ahead and get rid of that just because we've got other ways to draw cards at this point. Destroy target land, up to 2 target creatures can't block. We're getting rid of all the can't block things. Seize the Spotlight. I like this because for each player who chooses Fortune, you draw a card and make a treasure, and then the ones that say Fame, you gain control of something they have. So, and it's only a 3-drop, so that one I think can stay, for now at least. Shackles, that's a gain control, we get rid of that. Oh, we still have 50 to get rid of though. Shattering Spree. When you cast this spell, copy it for each time you paid its replicate cost. You may choose new targets. So it's just destroy target artifact. So yeah, the cool thing is that you can pay like 5 mana and destroy 5 artifacts. But that's all we're doing. All these things are just destroy target artifacts. Shreds of Sanity. Return up to 1 target instant sorceries from your graveyard to your hand. Then discard a card. So you still have to discard, but if you've got Shattering Spree in your hand, no one has any worthwhile targets. You basically discard that to get something better into your hand. So I think that's decent. Spectacular Showdown. Put a double strike counter on target creature, then goad each creature that had a double strike counter put on, or you can overload it. That sounds good, you know, 7 mana to overload basically each creature on the field and give them a double strike counter. But once it's down to you and your opponent, goad doesn't work anymore. So that could backfire. And I would also want to put the double strike counter on my guy, but then he's goaded, and if he's not big enough, he could just die. So I think we get rid of that. It's a good card, but not for this deck. Sundering Stroke deals 7 damage as you choose among whatever. If at least 7 red mana were used to cast it, it deals 7 damage to each of those permanents and or players. So you can do 7 damage to one opponent for 7 mana, or if you are able to pay all 7 mana as red, you could hit all your opponents for 7 damage each. It seems like a lot of hoop jumping, because these other ones are like lower than when they're damaging the whole table. I think we can get rid of that one. Return an instant card at random from your graveyard to hand. Random, but still getting it back. Tectonic Hazard, 1 damage to each opponent, each creature. Nah, that's fine. Get rid of that. Vandal Blast. Here we go again with getting rid of all the artifacts. Let's see here, because we got a fair amount of these artifacts things like Shattering Spree, Vandal Blast. Those are pretty good because you can dump a lot of mana into them and take out a lot of, even just if you're blowing up everybody's soul rings, you're getting rid of their ability to play some mana. But I don't want to have a billion things. Gain control, that's good, we get rid of that. Volcanic Vision, return target instant sorcery card from your hand, or from your graveyard to your hand. Deals damage equal to that card's converted mana cost to each creature your opponents control. I like that, but it is 7. A bit much just to get 1 card back. And as we've seen, I guess if we got back something like Fiery Confluence, that would deal 5 damage to, 5 damage to each creature, or 4 damage rather to each creature your opponents control. But here's the thing, late game, 4 damage to a creature is never going to be enough, because most creatures, once you get going, are way higher than that. So I think we get rid of that. That's a high cost spell. Wild Guess, it's good card draw, Witch's Mark, card draw. Well, we're down to 45, and now we only have creatures. So as you can see, this is where we're going to have to get rid of a bunch of stuff. So let's see. Let's go back up to the Planeswalkers. I still want Jessica, but yeah, we'll definitely get rid of Koth, because that's whatever. Zariel, it's a little buff, but again, it's repeatable, and we can also use her to make some blockers. All right, Aki Ronin. And the fun thing is, I realized is that Rograkh is a warrior. So when it says Samurai or Warrior attacks alone, you may discard a card if you do draw a card. So there you go. Alloy Myr, tap it for 1 mana of any color, but I guess we can get rid of that. Anarchist, when it comes into play, you may return target sorcery card from your graveyard to hand. So we want to keep that. But the 2 for 5, I don't know. That's a bit much. We'll leave it for right now. But all right, Angrath's Marauders, definitely. Even though that's a 7, that's a big deal. Ardent Elementalist. Return again when it enters the battlefield. Return a thing to your card. That's good though. Ashling Flame Dancer. You don't lose unspent red mana. And you cast or copy an instant sorcery spell, discard a card, then draw a card. If this is the second time that ability is triggered, it deals 2 damage to each opponent, and if it's a third, and each creature they control, and if it's the third time, you make 4 red mana. I think we keep that one. It's pretty good. The Blazing Sky, Flying and Trample. We need some flying. And then when it dies, you can make some treasures, or you can exile the top 2 cards and play them until your next turn. Backdraft Hellkite, flying 4/4. Again, we got some extra flying. That's good. When it attacks, each instant sorcery in your graveyard gains flashback until end of turn. So that's a really good. Blast Furnace. Creatures attacking your opponents have double strike, but that's a 9-drop with affinity for artifacts, or no, artifact offering. I think you have to sacrifice some artifacts to lower that cost. A 5/5 with flying and double strike, that's good because it'll hit for 10 damage. And flying is very underrated in Commander, as weird as that sounds. There's so many people that don't have flying or reach in their decks, and you can just sail right over and deal some damage. So we'll leave it for right now. Bloodthirsty Adversary enters the battlefield. You may pay 3 mana any number of times. When you pay that cost, put that many counters on her, then exile up to that many target instant source with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard, copy them. You may cast them without paying their mana cost. That's a lot. I mean, it's like you have to pay 3 a couple times to get a couple instances of her pulling some stuff out of your graveyard and playing it for free. It's like, I'd say we get rid of it. Bothersome Quasit. Goaded creatures your opponent's control can't block. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, goad target creature an opponent controls. and it's got menace. Like, I like this one. We're not going with a goad build, but I'm going to be casting, ideally, a lot of non-creature spells. So I can goad a bunch of creatures, but it's not permanent. So when it comes down to just me and my one opponent, although it does say this particular thing, it's not a May. So if I cast spells at that point, I'll still goad them. So could backfire. Rash Taunter, it's a 5-drop, but it's indestructible 1/1. When it's dealt damage, it deals that much damage to target opponent, and you can have it fight. They're really good though, so like maybe leave that for now. Captivating Crew, it's a gain control. We don't want that. Chandra, Fire of Kaladesh. Every time you cast a red spell, you get to untap her, and you can tap her to deal damage. And if she's dealt 3 or more damage, then you can flip her basically. And then she can deal 2 damage to target player or creature or whatever. So it's good. I mean, it's definitely good in a deck where I'm going to be hopefully casting a bunch of instant sorceries. Charmbreaker Devils. At the beginning of your upkeep, return an instant sorcery at random from your graveyard to your hand. That's huge. I mean, it's a 6-drop. Again, we're getting all these cards that are like 5 mana or higher, and that's really going to be problematic. Dualcaster Mage, of course. Play a spell, flash him in response to casting it, copy it. Pretty cool. And good for something like this. So we got Atali Primal Storm. I love her, but at this point, you can cast any number of them without paying their mana cost. But she's a 6-drop. 6/6 is great, and her ability is super awesome. But I think we just get rid of it just because we need to get some stuff down now. Firebrand Archer. So here's the thing. There's a lot of cards I could put in here that all say when you cast an instant or sorcery or a non-creature spell, deal 1 damage to your opponents. But it's like, if I'm not putting all of them in there, then I shouldn't just have just one off. Whenever a player casts their second spell each turn, he deals 2 damage to the target opponent. Since everybody loves to play multiple spells a turn, that could rack up pretty good. Heartless Hitasugi. I really like this card, but I think we just take it out. It's a fun ability, but if I'm not higher life total, because it hits everybody. So that needs to be in like a life gain red deck or something, or, paired in. Magus of the Wheel, you sacrifice them, each player discards their hands and draw 7. That, in a pinch, you're helping your opponents draw cards, which I hate, but I'm going to need the card draw more than anybody, so yeah, leave that. Overlord of the Boiler Biles, whenever it enters or attacks, it deals 4 damage to any target. But it is a 6-drop 5/5. I think we're going to get rid of it. Really want to keep that. But whenever a samurai or warrior attacks alone, the next spell you cast this turn costs 1 less to cast. You know what? It's after combat, so that doesn't actually help me. Plarg and Narsari. Each player exiles a top card. Again, this is really cool and fun, but in this build, I don't think it's going to be super helpful. Perforos, God of the Forge. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield, he deals 2 damage to each creature. But more importantly, because this isn't going to be a super heavy creature playing deck, but pay 3, creatures get +1/+0 until end of turn, so I can just dump a bunch of mana into that and give all my creatures like +3/+3 or +3/+0 rather, or whatever. Quake Tusk Boar. Reach, Trample, Haste 5/5 for 5. I'm kind of tempted to leave that because that's 5/5 for 5 is pretty standard and good, but the reach is what's really helpful in that to go along with those couple flyers we have. Revolutionist. When it enters the battlefield, return target instant or sorcery from your graveyard to your hand. Of course, that one should be in there. This, whatever, that's, if this was its own commander, yes, but it's coming out. Scrawling Crawler, that can totally come out. I just kind of put it in there because I was like, oh, I have it. Whenever a player casts a spell, if it's not their turn, Scytheclaw Raptor deals 4 damage to them. That one's good because that'll help stop people. It won't stop them, but it'll ping them if they try and blow up my stuff. Squee. Whenever he attacks, make the thing. Yeah. I put him in there. I put all the squeeze in because I thought it would be funny, but because that way, like this one, at the beginning of your upkeep, you may return it to from your graveyard to your hand. And then this one is, you may cast him from exile or... So that just means like I always have access to a creature to help block. That's not such a bad. I keep those. Stormkiln Artist, kind of a given in a red deck where it's like you cast or copy an instant sorcery, make a treasure so you can cast more things. Treasure Nabber, whenever an opponent taps an artifact for mana, gain control of it until the end of your next turn. I have the really cool full art version of that. That's why it's there. I really want to freaking play it, but I don't think it fits in this deck as well. And then Urbrask, whenever you cast an instant sorcery, it deals 1 damage to target opponent, and then you can pay a red and exile Urbrask, and then return it in this form where it's like deals 3 damage to target, blah, blah, blah. You know what? It's all target, though, so I say we get rid of that. All right, well, we're down to 30 cards. That's not too horrible. As you may have noticed, I'm not really chit-chatting with chat very much because there's no one in there. So it's a feel bad, but that's how it goes sometimes. So as we said, I think we can go ahead and get rid of Zarel. That'll help a little bit. Now we go back to the bottom and try again, try and cut some more cards. Cut all the lands, boom. No. All right, so the problem with these like little tiny ones, like, oh, it's +1/+1, who cares? But it's only a 1-drop, so I can play a couple of those. Like right here, Hammerhand and Warsqueak, I could play both of them on one turn. Now my commander is a 2/4 or 2/3. This one, I think all of these static, but I think almost like the enchantments, we kind of have to leave alone because they're just really important to give him some sort of baseline offensive power. So this one, let's see. Yeah, I think we can get rid of Sticky Fingers because, while it's a great card, it doesn't give many buffs, so we need the buffs. Whenever this creature attacks, it deals X damage to defending player. Number of cards in their hands, meh, that's not. It could be great if you got somebody that's playing a card draw deck, but you can't bet on that. Fiery Emancipation, of course. This one, if a card or token we put into your graveyard, oh, that's the right. So we have to wait for this one, so I say we get rid of it. You know, anything super complicated, chuck it. Super situational, chuck it. Unless you want to build the deck around it and be really smart about it, that's great. But for that, I would have to wait until I had a graveyard with some decent instant sorceries, then play it, cast them from graveyard, and then blow it up before I cast anything from my hand. Which certainly is not difficult, but at the same time, it's just an extra step, basically. Now, see, this one is a 3-drop that only gives +1/+1, and you can exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card with mana value 3 or less, cast it without paying its mana cost, or put it in your hand, put the rest. So it's kind of card draw. It kind of is, because that's what Discover is, Discover 3. So you get to look at the top card, draw exile cards from the top of your library, they hit something that's mana value 3, and you can either cast it or put it in your hand, which is nice because you don't have to immediately cast it on if it's one of the instants of sorceries needed. Yeah, I guess we can keep that. Dragon Mantle, that's the one where you can keep funneling mana into it to make him stronger. That's good. And then, of course, City on Fire and Arcane Bombardment. Let's see. This one, I say we get rid of that. For sure. Urbrask Forge. The thing is, it is every turn. Like, you have to, it's got to be like 5 or 6 turns before you start to really get a giant trample. And somebody's going to blow it up once it gets a decent time in. So we'll get rid of that. Again, I really think we need to keep mana rocks for casting multiple spells and for these, last ditch card draws if we need them. So that's 9 artifacts that we got to keep. Now we got our instants. Now here's the problem, because, kind of means we get rid of Delayed Blast Fireball, as we thought. Exile target artifact is better than destroy, because if it's indestructible, that could be a problem, but or deals 1 damage to each of up to 2 target creatures. Again, that's super helpful. And answers, it's card draw. Yeah, that's the problem with these things is because they're really important, these instants and sorceries. At this point, we should be paring them down to the point where they are simply buffing Rograkh, playing things from graveyard again, or card draw. That's really what they should be down to. And they are. That's the point. Each one of these is doing that. Hey, J-Ro. Thanks for stopping by. Appreciate you. Hope you're having a good night as well. Just cracking my head against these last 22 cards, trying to see what to get rid of in this very weird Rograkh deck I'm trying to build here. Aw, thank you so much for the gifted sub, man. I appreciate you. That's really nice. You're awesome. What are you up to tonight? Let's see. I really think leaving Disrupt Decorum in here as like a fail-safe last-ditch kind of, because that could be really fun to drop when you're up against like a token deck or something and everyone's gunning for you for some reason. And it's like, oh, nope, I play this, and you guys all smack it out amongst yourselves. Buy you some time. Well, that's cool. Let's see. Finale of Promise. That's important. Card draw. Well, see, I guess we could get rid of Seize the Spotlight and the other choice one we have in here somewhere. Prisoner's Dilemma. Because that's 5-drop. It always confuses people when you try and go through it too. So I guess we'll get rid of that. And then if we get rid of Seize the Spoils, but that has some card draw in it. Because a lot of people will be like, oh, I'm not giving you one of my creatures. For each player who chooses Fate gain control of a creature that player controls. Like, you get to pick. So, like, no, you can go ahead and draw a card, make a treasure. That could really help. It's only 3. I kind of want to leave that. This one, Surreal Memory, is return instant card at random from your graveyard to your hand. And it's a 4-drop. So I think we get rid of that. We want that recursion, but it's at random and it's only instances where, like this one, Recoup, target sorcery card in your graveyard gains flashback, so we can choose which one and still recast it. Although it doesn't put it in your hand, it does. You have to recast it, so there is that. But then see, this one, Shreds of Sanity, return up to one target instant card and up to one target sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand, then discard a card for 3 mana. That's just better value. So yeah, we were good in getting rid of that one. Here's where it gets really tricky because we're down to 20 cards we gotta get rid of. These instants or sorceries are really kind of important for the concept of the deck, but we've got 22 creatures, so if we got rid of the 20 cards, that we would get rid of 20 creatures. We can't do that. Yeah, just because of 0 ability is great for giving triple damage to Rograkh. I don't know. All right, but we can probably get rid of the Aki Ronin. Comes into play, return. Yeah, that one's good. Angrath Marauders, of course. Return from the graveyard, that's important. Flame Dancer. Every time you cast or copy an instance, you have to discard, then draw a card. So that could make you burn through your hand faster than you want. So there is that. But you do get to draw a card, though. It's like discard a card, then draw a card. And I don't know if you can't discard a card, if you're hellbent, you should still be able to draw a card, though, right? Have to look that up. Let's see. Blazing Sky. Again, we talked about we need some flyers. And if it dies, you get to card draw basically, or make treasures. Backdraft Hellkite, really important because it gets you stuff with flashback or makes things have flashback. Blast Furnace Hellkite, though. Again, that's a 9-drop for 5, which is double strike, so it's 10, and creatures attacking your opponents have double strike, so that could help get your opponents out of the way because they're smacking each other. Yeah, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, go target creature and opponent controls. I think that's probably like more important than the Blast Furnace at this point, so we'll get rid of that. Crash Taunter is important. Chandra's good. Charm Devil, Dualcaster Mage is good. This guy's good. Well, I mean, everyone's going to be playing a couple spells a turn, so it's going to be pinging them, but they'll either just blow him up real fast or just focus on me. Magus is great because it gets me 7 cards. Perforos is great because I can dump more mana into it and make, get a decent buff out of it if I have nothing in hand. Since we got rid of that other flyer, Quake Tusk Boar is actually more important because of the reach now. Getting stuff out of your graveyard, stopping them from playing spells on my turn, then Squeeze that you can get out of the graveyard just so you can, it might not I might not have anything in hand and I can still at least pay 3 mana to just get a blocker back. Storm Kiln gets you the treasures that again could be really helpful. This is tricky. Now, you're almost tempted like, I'll get rid of Cursed Mirror, but it's taps for red, so there's a couple of those cards that specifically need red, so that's actually really important that the artifact taps for an actual color. Yeah, I think these 9 artifacts are pretty much set. I don't think we can take anything from the artifacts. Enchantments, there's only 12 enchantments. Got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that give us some sort of static buff, so that's a decent number. We got 2 triple. I know what I said because it does give card draw and all that, but it's like, you know what? It's only giving us +1/+1 in hate and trample. Whereas these other +1/+1s are just 1 mana. So let's get rid of that at least. Yeah, I'm not really sure. Like Return to the Past and Arcane Bombardment, both 6 drops. That's a lot of mana, but they're the ones that are going to let me continuously get stuff out of the graveyard as opposed to some of the other stuff where it's just play a creature and get something back. And if I play the creature earlier in the game and I have nothing in the graveyard, it's just a wasted move, I think enchantments and artifacts kind of have to stay where they are. Now, because these artifacts, most of them, or 6 of them at least, are giving a buff, we can probably get rid of maybe some small buff spells. So let's look for spells that only give like something stupid. You got +2/+0 and first strike, and you make a treasure token. That one stays. This one here, target player draws 2 cards, and if the gift was given, we get the buff, which is good. It's card draw, which is really important. Target creature gets +3/+2. That's really good. 3/1, 3/0, but 3s are what matters. We want the power. Card draw, copying a spell, the next one we play, or giving something double strike. That's good. +2/+0, whereas these ones are only 2 drops. They're 3s, so we can probably get rid of Outlaw's Fury. Monstrous Rage, same thing. Well, this one for 1 gives basically 3, and it gives a counter, so that's just enchantment, basically. Invoke Calamity is really good. Card draw, 3, card draw. Now, something we need to try to figure out is the numbers. Like, how many card draw spells do we have? Like, you want a lot, but at the same time, I don't want to just be drawing into card draw spells. That's not going to help matters. So that might be a thing. So let's take a look. 1, 2, 2, come on, 3, 4, 4, and then up here we got 5, 6, basically 7, basically 8, 9. Okay, so we got essentially 9 card draw spells. I think well, we know there's card draw elsewhere. I mean, only 9 card draw spells. That's actually less than I thought would be in here. And yeah, technically the artifacts count as card draw because, like I said, we can sacrifice to use them. And I think we've got some card draw within the creatures, but not really. Like, that has to die to trigger that. Yeah, so that's not really a ton of card draw. All right, so here's the thing. Big score. The other card draw spells up here are like 2 drops. 2 drop, discard a card, draw 2. This one is 4 mana, discard a card, draw 2 cards, and make 2 treasures. I would like it more if it was like draw 3 or 4 cards, so we're going to get rid of that one. The Abrade, at least it deals 3 damage to a creature or destroys an artifact, so because we don't have anything that really targets creatures either, so we're very, very low on interactions, which is not great. I mean, it's fine in an actual casual commander game, but a lot of people are very interaction heavy and, counterspell happy, all that stuff. So, but we should probably figure out now what gets things out of the graveyard. So we know we have 2 spells, 2 enchantments rather, but 2 spells that get things out of the graveyard. 2, 3, looking like too many. But 4, 5, 6, 7. Then we got some creatures that do it. So 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we got 12 cards that get things back out of our graveyard. Instant sorcery specifically, obviously. Which is good, though. We want that. But again, we don't want to just have nothing but those cards in hand. So here, you know what? Anarchist is like, it's a 5 drop for a 2/2 that gets a single sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. Now, back to the hand's decent, but still, removing it. All right, well, we're down to 14. We're getting there. I have to admit, like, I know Ashling Flame Dancer is probably like a really great card, but I don't know. Like, the fact that every time I cast an instant sorcery, I have to discard a card. That feels like I'm going to, like, burn through. I know you draw a card in response, but still, it feels like, well, let's think about it for a second, right? I guess if we're dumping cards, drawing cards, and then we have, what do we just say, like 9 or 10 cards that get stuff out of the graveyard, I guess it's not that big of a deal. Especially if we get Mizzet's Mastery out or something, fire them all off. But it seems like it's going to be real tricky to use it properly. This one is a 6 drop that gets you a random card from the graveyard back to your hand. But it's a 4/4, and whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, it gets +4 until end of turn. So if you cast 2 or 3 of them in a turn, it's huge. So that's actually pretty cool. Now, Chandra, you tap it, you deal 1 damage to target player, then cast something and untap it, and blah, blah, blah. And then whenever she does flip, you can just do to the targets. I think we get rid of that. I don't think that's really... in this deck, we're not just firing off a bunch of like burn damage spells that are super cheap that would flip her instantly. You know what? Hearthborn as well, I think we can get rid of. It's a good card. I know it's, people love to cast multiple spells a turn, but See, I love this because it's one mana to 3 damage to each opponent, so that's a total of 9 mana, or 9 damage off of 1 mana. That's pretty cool. And then over here, if you pay 4 and choose the second mode 3 times, you're hitting everybody, each opponent for 6. Now you're hitting for 18 damage total. Like these, for 5 mana, you're dealing like 27 damage, right? 18, 9, yeah. That's like half of everybody's life total. That's pretty good. I do think we want to keep them. Goad all creatures you don't control. And then what was the thing that said every time you cast a spell? Did I get rid of that one already? Not even sure. Okay, so Finale of Promise is good because regardless of when you play it, you can adjust the mana you're putting into X to appropriately. Like if you play it late game, you can maybe pull off the 10 or higher, but if you're in a pinch and you need some cards, you can just dump like 2-3 mana into it and get something back. This is always the tricky part when it comes down to this, because I know I'm just going to be dumping good cards that I shouldn't, but I don't know what else to get rid of. Like we said, I'm not going to get rid of lands, tempting as that is, and I do think we're good on the artifacts. I know it's 9, but that's still mana rocks and, a card draw. That's important. Well, we could probably get rid of Decanter of Endless Water, I guess, because we're not going to be drawing that many cards. Endless Atlas is a repeatable card draw. That's important. First Mirror is good. Excuse me. I think the rest of them, that's only 8. We're not going any lower, gosh darn it. And these 2 are very important, because they're enchantments, so they're repeatable. They just stay on the battlefield as long as someone doesn't blow them up, or getting your spells back. The 2 triplers are super important. Obviously, like I said, I mean, 8 mana to cast City on Fire, but still, it's important to get it out. Fire Emancipation is definitely your best bet because it's only 6. Maybe we get rid of Maniacal Rage because it says he can't block. We could probably don't want that. Yeah, as long as you control enchanted creatures, it gets to +2/+2 otherwise. So that's a decent one that was a decent one to get rid of. Dragon Mantle, I mean, that's just a given. You can just dump as much red mana as you have, making him really strong. Target creature, yeah, so I can stop something from blocking. And again, the point is, yeah, it's only +1/+1, but it's only a 1-drop. You know, like theoretically, if I have that or, you know, that one in my opening hand, let's say, 0 drop, I cast my commander, I play a land, play a mountain, tap the mana for hammer hand, or wait, was that what the one? Yeah, it comes in, I equip it, he's a 1/2 with haste. I can ping somebody for 1 commander damage on turn 1. I mean, that's pretty fun. It's not going to do crazy numbers, but at least it's something. Sends a message. I don't think I want to go lower than these 10. So I really think artifacts and enchantments are done. Still have 10 more things to cut. And really, they have to be from instants and sorceries. Because we got 19 and 18. And we've got 17 creatures. So we really shouldn't go much lower on the creatures, if at all. So basically 5 and 5. That's a lot. Now, where was that thing? There was, yeah, Shattering Spree. So you know what? Do we get rid of Vandal Blast? Because it's a 5-drop to get rid of everything. Whereas Shattering Spree, I think we get rid of it. Then 4 damage to target creature, exile something. What's this one? 3 damage to target creature, destroy target artifact. Okay, so it's 3 mana and 2 mana. Exile is always better than destroy because it gets around indestructible and stuff like that. But screw it, let's get rid of that. You know what? Let's get rid of this one too because it's only +2 and it makes a treasure. So fine, get rid of that. 4/3 is fantastic for 2 mana. We want that. 3/1 is still really good, and you basically have card draw in it. We want to keep that. Actual card draw, attacking creature gets +2/+2, and whenever it deals combat damage, destroy target artifact that player controls. Not bad, and it's a 1. Copy target instant or sorcery spell. You may choose new targets. So theoretically, if I had 4 mana, I could cast Dreadmaw. And then, well, let's say I had 5. I could cast Antagonize and then Flare of Duplication in response to copy Antagonize. So then now, like I said, he's an 8/7. And see, 2/2/2 is not that great, but it's only a 1-drop. Whereas, you know, other things are, you know, 3/1 is 2, and blah, I don't know. But we have a 3/2 here, and this is a 2/2 for, okay, so let's get rid of that. Let's do it. Gimli's Fury, 3/2, 3/2, 2/1, 2/0. But you also make a monster roll token attached to the target creature, which gives it a enchantment version of +1/+1. So it would be +3/+1 till end of turn, and then it would revert to just +1/+1 for just 1 mana. I mean, that's just as the same as down here. Oops, that was down here, but you know what I'm saying, where it was, you know, Infuriate. Well, yeah. Nope, we'll get rid of Monstrous Rage. All right, we're down to 5. We got this, guys. Turns out they didn't got it. Oh, no. Target artifact or +3/+2. That's really good. You know what? That's card draw. Additional cost. Target player draws 2 cards. And if you give the fish, it's an extra little +2/+0. I think, because mainly we're using it really for the card draw, and then like the little buff is like, you know what? No, screw it. We're getting rid of it. Because I don't want to give my opponents anything. So even if it's just a 1/1 fish, I don't want to give it to them. And +2/+0 isn't that big of a deal. And we've got plenty of other card draw. Twin Inferno, copying a spell or giving double strike. That's really good for 2-drop. Super good. With the instants, I think are pretty solid. Witch's Mark. So that's, again, similar to the other one where it's like card draw, but it's giving the buff, but we don't have to give anything away. So we keep that. Wild Guess, same kind of thing. Return up to 1 target instant card and a sorcery. So you get, for 3 mana, you get 1 of each back to your hand. That's really good. So pay 3 to exile the top 2 cards of your library. If you cast the spell for its free running cost, but that's only after like an assassin or commander dealt damage. So we want to do that beforehand. Well, actually, yeah, you know what? Screw it. We're getting rid of that too. Simply because the point of drawing cards is we need the cards before combat because they're meant to pump up our commander. So doing anything on second main phase isn't going to help us as much. We got one thing for some artifacts. Again, here we are with the thing where it's like, well, I really like it. It's only a 3-drop. So Phyretic Charge, you plot it for 4 mana and then discard your hand, however many cards that is, but you only draw 4. And then for every card discarded, it gets +1/+1, +1/+0. So it really, okay, I mean, 4 mana to draw 4 cards and give a buff of +3 +0, let's say. Well, that is pretty good, I guess. We should leave that. 4 mana to give everything flashback until end of turn. And the card itself has flashback, so can in fact use it multiple times. And see now, this one, Recoup, target sorcery card in your graveyard gains flashback. Yeah, so we could play Mizzet's Mastery, and then everything gets out of your graveyard without paying its mana cost. And then we pay Recoup to give Mizzet's Mastery flashback, and if we had another 4 mana, so it would be 8, 9, 10. If we had 10 mana, well, no, hang on, sorry. Because the way Mizzet's Mastery works, as you cast those copied spell, they get exiled. So you actually wouldn't be able to do it a second time. That's on me. But still, there are good sorceries that we could, use Recoup for. All right, let's get rid of the Disrupt Decorum and the Seize the Spotlight. Let's just make it easy. And we got one more card. So guess what? We're going to go ahead and get rid of a mountain. I don't care. Boom. We did it. 100 cards. All right. Obviously, this deck is going to need tested through Moxfield and then tested against, real people. Hopefully, turns out to be fun. Hopefully, again, like I said, this is not going to be a deck that's going to be winning constantly and definitely not winning against high-powered opponents. It's really just meant to be a goofy, I guess janky, if you want to use janky term, but a goofy deck for actual casual games. But anyway, thank you all for watching. Hope you had some fun watching and saw some good cards that you want to put in your decks, and I'll see you next time.